Started my career in workforce development with the state of Kentucky in 2010. That experience ignited a deep passion for manufacturing within me. I started this show hoping to raise more awareness around the bright outlook manufacturing careers have. Join me as I sit down with some of the manufacturing industry's most successful changemakers and learn how they're partnering people with technology. It's time to give people more meaningful work. This is Workforce 4.0. Hey y'all, and we are live. How is everybody today? Happy Workforce Wednesday. We are really excited to have Mike Nager on today. Mike works for Festo Didactic in the Solutions Center, and he is a huge advocate of workforce development, a 3-time published author, and is also a top influencer in IIoT and smart manufacturing. So welcome, Mike. It's so good to have you on today.
And thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on. I was, when I started the show, you were one of the very original people. I was like, I've got to have Mike on.
Oh, okay.
Because I just, yeah, because I remembered some of our conversations through the Industry 4.0 Club and things like that. And
yep.
I always had such deep respect for you. And I'm so honored you're here today. So I appreciate that.
No, I appreciate the invitation. And, you know, the topics that we always discuss have widespread appeal. So when we talk about training and workforce development and bringing people into the industry, there's a lot of excitement around that right now. So it's a good time to be in manufacturing and smart manufacturing in particular.
Absolutely. It's such an innovative time, right? I think.
Oh, yeah. 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 Things are changing so quickly. It's tough to keep up. And this is what manufacturers have been struggling with for quite a few years now. The technology is changing, but then also the corporate environments are changing as well. So there's a tsunami of change going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's wild. Recruiting's wild, so I get it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, before we get started into our conversation today, I just want to welcome anybody that is watching live. If you have any questions or comments, if you just want to stop by and give a shout out, just drop that into the chat. I will be going through those throughout the live today and pulling those up on screen and trying to get your questions answered from Mike as well. So with that, are you ready to get started?
I am ready.
All right, let's rock and roll. Perfect. Well, speaking of rock and roll, you know, it's just become a tradition on Workforce 4.0 to start the whole conversation off in kind of a fun way and talk about karaoke and music because I'm a music lover. It's my thing. Yep. I don't know. I love it. And I feel like a lot of people are. So it's something that, you know, we can kind of share. So I'm going to ask what I ask everybody, but what is your go-to karaoke song, or what is your favorite song?
Yeah, so when it comes to music and karaoke, there's two different things there. So I like music as well. I have a pretty wide taste in different styles and bands and influencers. And karaoke is a whole separate thing. So I think I'd rather go to the dentist than go to a karaoke bar and sing a song.
Really?
Yes. If I was forced to, I would pick a song that you really didn't have to sing, because I cannot carry a tune to save my life. So it would be something like from Johnny Cash, like A Boy Named Sue, or maybe something from Leonard Cohen in his later years, where he had that deep, gravelly voice and just kind of talked into the microphone. or maybe something with U2 when Edge was singing, right?
Yes.
Right. So
That's
I would be looking for those sorts of songs if I was put up there on the stage. If they got me out of the dentist office and up on the stage, I would definitely shoot for something like that.
I feel like there's nothing wrong with that.
So it's a little bit of a cheat, but that's how I would cope with that situation.
Well, I know on our call, on our prep call before the show today, we talked a little bit about being introverted, and I was kind of sharing that I was also an introvert, but it's different, right? If you're an introvert, getting up there and kind of going for it. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts as a fellow introvert on that?
Well, it depends on the actual event. So getting up and singing is one thing. When I was in college, I did play some instruments, so I was up on stage, for that. But that was different. I had a skill set with those instruments. So
What did you play?
I played banjo.
I love the banjo. I do.
So,
I do. Yes.
bluegrass and newgrass and things like that. But that was a little bit different. So it's very situational being on it. But
that's awesome. The banjo
yeah.
is not an easy instrument to play, by the way.
Yeah. Yes, it has its challenges.
Yeah, it does. I've tried.
Yeah. Oh, well, you have? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, very cool. Well, let's go ahead and get into more of the meat and potatoes of the conversation, workforce development, training, all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
So I know with your background, Mike, you've got a lot of experience in the manufacturing industry, both working directly with technology and advocating for keeping people as the center of the manufacturing process.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us from your experience, what traits do you see that really sets companies with great company culture apart from companies that maybe don't have a great company culture? Are there any markers? Are there any specific traits that you've noticed over the years?
I would say I think of some general traits. Um, one marker of a good company culture is one that can respect all the employees to an equal level, right? And that plays, and we talked about this offline a little bit, and plays a little bit into the diversity topic. So do all employees feel welcome? Do all employees feel like they belong in the organization? Do all employees feel like they have the chances to move up in the organization to the best of their ability, or do they feel hampered by it? Do they feel invisible forces holding them back somehow in it? So if those are absent, those negative connotations, then I would say that is a that lends to a good corporate culture. And then in the back of my mind, I also think companies that are highly siloed with different departments, with different structures, and they don't have a lot of commonality. A lot of times those silos compete against each other for the internal resources of the company. So when you're a small company and you're growing, everyone's one big team, and you all sit around at the holidays, for a company dinner, and you all fit around one table, and it's easy to keep that. But then as you get up to 20 or 100 or 500 employees, these silos develop, and you start competing against yourselves instead of competing in the workforce. So I would say that would be an indicator in my mind of what a healthy company culture is. Does everyone, regardless of the position, regardless of the business unit, regardless of the department, are they all pulling in the same direction? Is a win for one a win for all, right? So that would be my my ideas of what's separating good culture from bad cultures.
Yeah, those are some interesting thoughts on that, and I, I don't know. I would tend to agree with that. I don't know. That's interesting. I never thought about it that way. So thank you for putting that into perspective for us. Yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely. Um, Perfect. Well, you're also really involved in the smart manufacturing and IIoT space. as a
Yes.
top influencer, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Um, from your perspective, where are we on adopting Industry 4.0 technology? And how do you see this leading into kind of what everybody is calling the new buzzword, right, as Industry 5.0 technology?
Yeah. So, I spent my career working for manufacturers of industrial controls, the people and companies that made the widgets that went into manufacturing operations, utility operations, inside control cabinets on the machine, sensors, controllers, communication devices. And for a long time, we knew that things were developing, but we didn't have a word for it. It was just like things were getting better. They were kind of getting smarter. Um, GE jumped out, years ago with the smart factory, as kind of a little buzzword for their own product offering, and that was pretty good. But then Industry 4.0 came about. And what Industry 4.0 coming out of Germany did was gave a whole big framework around what was happening right now, but giving an historic context to how it came about. So if any of your viewers aren't knowledgeable in Industry 4.0 yet, which I doubt, but but that is the premise that there's not just one industrial revolution that happened that we learn about in school with the steam engine and farms and textile being mechanized, by steam power. But there's actually been three industrial revolutions that happened since that time, and we're in the midst of the fourth right now. So it gives this whole nice context of describing events that actually happened. Like in the first industrial revolution, it was pretty much a revolution. People fought and died, trying to defend the old way of life, right? You can read about that, people attacking the machines and things of that nature. So it was an actual event. It wasn't just a thought experiment. The industrial revolution happened, and then you had the second with mass production and the electric motor, and the third with computer technology, and now the cyber physical systems in the fourth. So, when we think about it that way, this Industry 4.0 framework is a great way of describing to everyone not only what's happening today, but also the context of what went before it. So it's extremely valuable. And I hate the term Industry 5.0, right? It just rankles me to no end. Um, and why is that? I get a lot of angry people that call me up after I make that statement. So I'm surprised my phone isn't already buzzing. Um, the first thing is it ignores this historic perspective of counting from 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Things are supposed to all happen in order. So if the fourth industrial revolution is not over, you can't have the fifth one. It's an oxymoron. It doesn't fit the framework. Um, it also, leads me to believe that people were kind of saying that because it's jumping on kind of the marketing bandwagon with this industry 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but it doesn't have the substance behind it. There's nothing in Industry 5.0 that can't be described in Industry 4.0. Some people say and this is another thing, no one agrees what Industry 5.0 is either. So you have some people saying it's the people being connected into the workforce, but I don't see how that distinguishes from Industry 4.0. You have a whole nother group of people, and I think the website Industry 5.0 is actually talking about environmental concerns and making sure that the environmental concerns are met. But nothing in that, in my mind, can't be discussed as the circular economy or something of that nature. So it's kind of my pet peeve. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of folks that want to talk to me about it afterwards, and I'm happy to. But I think we can stick with Industry 4.0 and do just fine.
Yeah, that's some interesting thoughts as well on that. And I kind of because I do remember reading in history class, or maybe it was social studies or one of those classes about the Industrial Revolution. I mean, that was part of our curriculum, but we never really got past the, you know, the first industrial revolution in our textbooks. It was just kind of like, like a couple page blurb of how the industrial revolution came about and the impact and how it leading to events like the world fairs and all of that stuff. Um, so I wonder if that's not something that was retroactive or if that was something that was one of these, how people say hindsight is 2020.
Yeah,
But I
right.
wonder how it wasn't one of these things that occurred and then you looked back and said, "Oh, this was like the source of it." You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, and the people that came up with the Industry 4.0 nomenclature actually noted that it wasn't until the future, looking back, you could say, okay, this happened and there was a big shift. The second one happened. What did that mean? It meant more people came into the cities and were leaving the farms. So there was a shift. It caused a bigger shift than just a machine being invented, and and so on. And trying to predict this fourth industrial revolution, I think people are saying it's pretty much we're not exactly sure if it's a revolution, if it's happened yet, right? We seem to be incrementally approaching it, but it's definitely not wide scale. It's certainly not a revolution like the first one was, when people fought against each other and died. I don't think anyone is dying over Industry 4.0 that I know of. I hope not, at least.
We hope not. Then we've got bigger problems.
We got a
Right?
lot bigger problems. Exactly right.
Yeah. So I'm going to read a couple of the comments. Thank you guys for your comments here in the chat. Samuel is here. He is commenting on the karaoke conversation. He had to do karaoke in Japanese. Samuel, I could not. What do you think about that, Mike?
I think it's awful. I don't want anything to do with karaoke.
I say good enough for you, Samuel, because there's nope. So I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. Kyle Pace has an interesting comment here that we'll probably address a little later on in our conversation, but I'll go ahead and bring it up here.
Yeah.
He says the problem is the boomer generation refused to give our generation an opportunity in industry. Now the boomers are finally leaving the workforce and people my age are already established in other jobs. That's interesting. What do you think about that, Mike?
Well, that gets in to what we discussed right before the show a little bit, the generational aspects of it. So I'm actually a Gen X generation. I'm not the boomer generation. I'm Gen X, which is kind of forgotten in between boomers and millennials. So I certainly can resonate with that feeling. Um, people staying in the workforce longer did slow the upward climb. Even in my career, I could definitely feel that. Whereas before, people were advanced in general more rapidly, right? So there is some truth to it, but I guess I would also caution against the stereotyping of the generations. If you look at the technology that's available today, that even me, at my age didn't have early in the career. There's so many ways that you can make your own career. There's so many ways that you can make yourself a influencer in the industry. There's so many ways you can start your own business and not worry about someone giving you a chance or getting out of the way, that didn't exist 20 or 25 years ago, right? You can set up an online shop. You can incorporate in 10 minutes. You can have a web page in 15 minutes. You can sell things without any inventory. So So I would caution, about saying, I can't be successful because people are blocking my path. Successful people don't get blocked, right? They go around and they persevere.
Just
So
you find a new path, right?
you find the new path. Exactly right. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that just from my own personal experience in owning a small business. And I can't code, but Elementor makes for anybody that wants to design a website. I get the mainframe done and then use Elementor and just drag and drop. You know what I mean? Drag and drop, rather.
mhm.
Yes,
Yep.
absolutely. Well, speaking of technology, Sam does have another question, and it is a good one. But what are your thoughts on this upcoming revolution? And do you think it's going to be more hardware or software?
I think both the hardware and the software are what I would call the enabling technologies that allow the industrial revolution, Industry 4.0, to occur. I wouldn't say either of them are the Industry 4.0. I think that combination and the advancements in both hardware and software are allowing the service-oriented businesses to really come up and be possible. So, if you look at mega trends, a mega trend is everyone is trying to get away from selling a widget, right? I said, I have the best widget on the earth, costs $10, and here, buy my widget. It's great. It shakes, it makes a noise. You buy it, and that sale is over. Everyone is trying to go towards a service-oriented business and a subscription-based model. And that's what the hardware and the software is enabling companies to do. So to rethink their business models and to rethink what their customers are actually buying when they buy the widget, right? So I would say both are important, but both are not really the revolution. The revolution is what they enable forward-thinking businesses to change their model for. So
Interesting. So what you're saying is kind of like that's the vehicle on the path or to the destination, maybe.
yeah, just by itself. And by the way, I talk to probably 70% of the people that I talk to are inside the manufacturing industry. So when they think about Industry 4.0, typically it's zeroing in on something relatively small or narrowly focused. So it's something like the communication network between databases. How can this database not be in a silo and the information can be shared everywhere in real time? And that's really important. Or they're looking at productivity gains or energy efficiency, everything inside the building of manufacturing. But from the consumer standpoint, they don't care about any of that, right? They just want their product personalized, customized in small batches, delivered quickly, and maybe with a service package around it, right? So I think in the manufacturing, we get this tunnel vision on the technology, OPCUA, MQTT, augmented reality for maintenance, but the person buying the product doesn't care anything about that, right? They just want their product at the right price, good service, and at the right time. So I think we have to step back a little bit and look at more of the big picture of how this is changing. Right, when we talk about Industry 4.0, the shoe manufacturers are looking at that. You go into a sneaker store and you want to buy some tennis shoes or basketball shoes. Well, why have it off the shelf? Why can't it be personalized? Why can't the manufacturing be in the back of the store? No more sizes 2, 3, 4.5, 5. It's just size you. Measure your foot, measure your left one, and you get a custom-made shoe. That's where the value added is going to be in the Industry 4.0 sphere.
That's really cool. I actually I visited a shoe store. It's funny that you say that. I visited a shoe store over in Huntsville like a couple of weekends ago that they did that, and they took a digital
Ah,
twin of your foot.
yeah, there you go.
And it was very much like Sleep Number or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was just really cool. That's so cool that you used that example. That's funny.
Well,
Let's.
well, yeah. I mean, in mass production, you know, that was great 100 years ago because people could afford shoes and could afford suits and dresses that were professionally made. But the trade back is it wasn't tailored just for you, right? So that's the bargain that people made, right? Do you want to wear a potato sack that your parents make you, or do you want to wear a, you know, a suit,
I
right?
mean,
But it's not going to fit
yeah.
exactly right. That's the trade-off that we just always live with. But with Industry 4.0, now we don't have to live with that trade-off. We can get it tailored just for us.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, let's switch gears here just a little bit before I get into the rest of these questions here, because I want to talk about your children's book.
Ah,
And you
yes.
had just, yes. So you had actually sent me a copy.
This
And I
guy.
was very fortunate. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I was very fortunate enough to share that with my 5-year-old little boy. He absolutely loved it, and I could tell that it was very engaging for him. I could see the wheels turning, and then he was already able to like answer a lot of the questions there that you had in the book.
Oh, great.
Um, but yeah, it's called All About Smart Manufacturing. And you're currently working on publishing a bilingual version of the
Yes.
book. So, why do you think that diversity is so important to the overall success of the manufacturing industry? And what inspired you to write a children's book?
Yes. So during my day job, I work for Festo Didactic. I work with universities and schools and colleges all around the US and Canada in developing the equipment set that they need for their labs to teach students about smart manufacturing and Industry 4.0. And in that job, in a way, I am engaged in fighting the skills gap, right? So for 20 years, we've heard about the skills gap. And that's kind of the day job. My night job or side hustle, if you will, is fighting the awareness gap. And the awareness gap is not looking at it from the manufacturer standpoint, but looking at it from a young person standpoint, especially a young person that might live in an urban area, might be a first or second generation American that has no family members involved in manufacturing. And to them, manufacturing is an invisible field. It doesn't exist in their mind. So this was created to give the opportunity for people that have no direct experience or people close to them with a direct experience, a little peek inside what happens inside the modern manufacturing facility, the equipment that's being used, and also the job opportunities around. So this is a fight against the awareness gap, people not being aware that there's good jobs, stable careers available in the industry, and no one else is doing it. So um, it's kind of my nerdy hobby is how I describe it to fight against that. But it coincides with the skills gap because really we have to get kids interested 7, 8, 9 years old at the latest before in their own mind, right? Their own mind, they're already saying what's for them and what's not for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
High school, too late. You know,
In high
high
school, they
school,
want to be
high
a,
school, it's this book, but anyone that buys
yeah.
this book has already decided on a technical manufacturing engineering path. This no one's picking it up at that stage to do it. So that's why we needed a rhyming children's book about smart manufacturing. But the world needs that. A message came to me in my mind. So
Well, I appreciate it because we needed that. I needed that. So thank you, Mike. I do. I love that. Phoenix loved it. It was fun to read to him, for sure. And yeah, I think there's some truth to that, right? Because I have older nephews that are teenagers.
Hmm.
And in their minds, one is a senior this year and he's going to medical school.
Okay.
That's that's his that's his decision. That's what he decided that he wanted to do.
Yep.
And the other one is really into basketball and does all of that, the sports and stuff, super athletic. Um, but that's, kind of, I remember a certain point in his life as his aunt, sitting back and watching him cognitively, decide,
Yes.
make that decision. So I agree. I think that, we have to do a better job of reaching the youths and really resonating with them at their level and getting them interested and aware and say, hey, look, we've got this. It's awesome. It pays well. It's stable. It's a great career path.
Yeah, yeah, and you've done a great job. You and the different women in manufacturing groups that you've set up and you belong to. That this is another form of manufacturers don't have the luxury of not opening their doors and not being diverse in terms of the population. That it's not a matter of being nice and trying to do it. It's a matter of survival, right? So, I did make an effort on here to try to kind of represent different people that would have a great home in smart manufacturing. Even on the back, smart manufacturing is eliminating a lot of the physical barriers. With people with some physical limitations might not think there's a spot for them in manufacturing, but the smart manufacturing there is. So it enables people to make a living, raise a family, have it to be interesting, and to have it to be really important work. We need this for the country. Manufacturing dollars stay in the community. When they're spent,
Exactly.
right? It generates wealth. It's one of the few industries that generates wealth, just doesn't distribute it around. It does both, but it's all local, so it's extremely important. That's why these manufacturing institutes were started by the Department of Defense and Department of Commerce. So if you're not aware, there's 15 manufacturing institutes now all around the country, funded by the federal government to spark the smart manufacturing portion of it. And the Department of Defense sees it very, very clearly, the importance of it. So
Interesting.
so
Um,
join in. We need everyone to feel welcome and everyone to have a chance.
Absolutely. There is always a seat at the manufacturing table. And I'll tell you another person that is absolutely killing it on the manufacturing and advocating for women and getting girls and youth into the industry is Megan
Oh,
Zimba.
yes. Yep.
She's absolutely um, a force, if you will. She's awesome. She does great work with that.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. You'll see her on the title page as my chief beta reader, because she gave me the most feedback on the preliminary version of the book. So
awesome.
I really
Yes.
appreciated that.
Good. I'm going to try to get through some of these questions here from the audience. Thank you guys so much for your comments and questions here. I'm pretty sure this is Carol Mitchell. I'm pretty sure. We all know this is a thing. LinkedIn does this to me too. But what do you think about this statement? Industry 4.0 is not just hardware and software. It is a major change management, and it affects every department of a company in order to get to new business models.
I think that's a much better and succinct way of saying what I said a few moments ago, in a lot less time and fewer words. So yeah, I agree 100%. 100%.
Okay. And Ronan says most of the challenges people face in this transition, I'd argue, are cultural. We can set up hardware and software all day, but if the culture isn't ready for the increased agility and transparency it brings with it, they have a hard time making it work. What do you think about that, Mike?
Yeah. Yeah. So, there's, a transition going on that is reducing the silos, reducing the hierarchical um, organizational structures. And yeah, I agree. It's a very tough one. I know several consultants in organizational behavior and stuff working with companies, um, because the top down approach doesn't really work as well as it did in the past. It's great for setting major goals and things of that nature. Um, but yeah, the how those teams are organized is super complex. I would say it's more complex than the technology is. And there's a lot of smart people I know working on that. Fortunately,
Well, that's
it's out of my sphere because I'm not sure I could do that. But people are thinking about it for sure.
Well, that's kind of a great segue into our last question for the day, um, which kind of talks a little bit more about having those conversations, right? And especially with multi-generational workforces. But I named this episode Manufacturing and Industry for All Generations.
Yeah.
And when it comes to blending the multi-generational workforce, what do you feel like is the best way to lead those conversations? Um, in order to build the cultural bridge between workforce generations? And why will this ultimately lead to the longevity and continuous improvement efforts of the industry as a whole? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. That's a little bit of a tough one. I think I would default to saying that, if like what we said earlier, if the organization is showing that they respect every individual in the organization equally, and um, and enforce that, right? So if there's some bad actors um, that are making people feel uncomfortable or not participating, that they remove that, right? They don't subject the rest of the people to it. Um, that goes a long way because in the end, people are people. I really don't buy into the generational stereotypes. It drives me crazy because for a while I was going to different conferences and the speaker would get up there and he would talk about, it was always millennials. Everyone would pick on the millennials, right? Oh, they're coming in late. They don't have a good work ethic and, this and that. And then he talk about the boomers. Gen X was always spared because we're the forgotten generation. But,
I'm jealous.
the boomers, they don't know how to operate their cell phone and, all these stereotypes about that. So I would just throw that stereotype thinking out of the way. My song playlist would rival anybody's, no matter what their age is. I'm pretty good with gadgets, even though I'm a little bit older than the average now. And I know many young people that have tremendous work ethic and tremendous skills and tremendous drives and are going to be phenomenal in their careers. So, that's one thing I would just throw out right away. It's a false label that we're putting on things. We're just all people at the end of it with different skill sets and different experiences.
Absolutely. I like that approach. I think that's a lot, it's closer to the truth than
Yes.
what the narrative is. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
said what I said.
I mean, the narrative is funny, right? Oh, yeah, the kid's going down to get his avocado toast and not coming up for the meeting. I mean, it's
Who would
funny.
do that?
Who would do that? Come on. And by the way, I have a lot of respect for the younger people. They're demanding better work-life balance. Um, you know, um, Earlier in generations, didn't have the power to do that. You So, I'm all for it. I'm all for changing it and making things better. And kudos to them for pushing it.
And using technology to do it, right? Giving people more meaningful work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, we are 10 minutes past our time today. I apologize for keeping you on a little longer than expected, but
That
and we
was a
had
lot of
some
fun.
more amazing questions and comments
Oh, I see some of them. Yeah.
in the chat too. So I don't know. I'll try to go through those and address those later. But I know everybody's short on time and time is precious. But for those that want to reach out to you, maybe they want to connect with you or have questions of their own, what's the best way to get a hold of you, as we like to say here in Alabama?
Yeah. I would say start on LinkedIn. Just send me an invite. I'm an open, connecting type of person, and that way we don't have to worry about emails and stuff as people move and shift around. So um, let's just meet up on LinkedIn. I think that's where I met you in. So it's a great platform.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, I appreciate your time today and all of the good perspectives you've given us. I think there's been a lot of value for me in this conversation. I hope so also for our viewers and our audience today as well. You guys have been awesome. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you next week on Workforce 4.0, and I hope everybody has a great day and a great rest of the week.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ann. Goodbye.
Yeah. Bye.